But this guy's comment was, how do I get, I don't remember if it was my kid or a player who's really good in practice to be able to perform in the game? That's the question, right? How can I get my kid? He's a good practice player, but in the game just can't really put it together. And I wanted to start kind of getting your thoughts on that question first and kind of how to address that maybe as from the player coaching side. And then that'll kind of lead us into the rest of the episode today, because I want to talk about a little bit about pregame routines, because there's a lot of things that play into that, and that's a common question too. Like, what should I be doing on game day? What should I be eating? Should I be working out? Should I be doing this or that? And a lot of it plays into that preparation piece of preparing for an actual game situation. And I think this kind of ties in nicely with that when you're talking about, I can do it in practice, but when the game starts, now all of a sudden I don't know how to deliver. So you can start on that, and then we'll go from there.
Might be long-winded, but I'll do my best. Okay. All right. So it's actually, I think what happens, like I'm talking from both sides, from a coach's perspective and a player's perspective. So from a coach's perspective, it's very funny, like we just had conversations with a couple of people recently, and their idea, coaches, I guess parents are along the same line, is their idea of what skill is pylons, or a skills practice, meaning, a very structured stick handle. Okay, the next thing is this move, or shooting. It's instructed skill, and that's not necessarily what skill is. It is skill, but it's also, skill could be implemented in a lot of different ways, through small area games, through your drills, executing them right, executing them quickly, and through small area games and battle drills. So and then in the game itself. But like, I will never minimize getting skill, because skill work is very, very important. But it's a matter of taking that skill and putting it into actual application. So many kids look really good in a practice. It happens all the time, and then you see them in a game and they're lost. So there's obviously a gap there of thinking the game or managing the game, right? And that's either maybe, and I don't know, maybe it's something you just get, like you understand hockey, or you're thinking as a team player, or you're taught that. I don't know which one it is, to be honest with you. I can only reflect on when I played the game as a youth anyways. I had a thing in my head where I was I was skilled, very skilled, but at the same time, I liked making plays. Like, I enjoyed that. So in a game, I was able to, like, I was looking for people that I can move. And I don't know if some kids that have the skill, because I get confused. I'm really good against the pylon, so this should work against you. But you move, and you have a stick, and you hit, and you are battling me, and you don't want to, because you might be the guy that's, as much as I want to score, you might be the guy that's equally determined to defend.
Mm-hmm.
So pylons don't do that.
Well,
Peps don't do that.
Yeah, just to interject on that, I think it's like any other skill set, right? Like, I like using the example with math class. Like, some kids just more naturally understand math concepts, and other kids don't. But either way, you can work to make it better. And I think part of the problem that kids have with being able to translate what they're doing into a game is that their skills coaches or their trainers don't explain why you're doing the thing you're doing. Like, one of my favorite things that you teach, and that I now teach because of you, is if you're teaching kids a certain move or a certain deke, the question is always why. Like, what are we trying to accomplish with this move, right? So it's not just like you're going up to stick handle for the sake of doing the stick handle. And everybody kind of gets like, yeah, if I do this right, I can get around them. But the underlying thing of any deke is that you're trying to make space so that you can either get around them, or you can make the next move that you need to make, or make the next play that you need to make. And that's not taught very often. I don't hear that. That's not a common thing that skills coaches and trainers are teaching. They're so busy teaching how to execute the move around the cone that they're forgetting the context of how to make that work in the game. So you get all these kids that are really skilled when they're going through cones and when they have to do skating and different types of crossover stuff and all that. But now they can't identify it in the game because no one has told them this is used for this. And like, some kids just naturally will get it more without being told, but some kids just don't see it. And it just takes you telling them or slowing it down and explaining to them what you're doing. Like, another thing that happens a lot with us when we're on the ice is, if it is a stick handling thing, just because that's an easy example, kids will fly through the cones to get through the drill. And it's like the point of the drill isn't speed right now. The point of the drill is to handle the puck and
Yeah.
to execute the move correctly.
Yeah. So
right?
in that, like, because you're talking probably what we did the other night. So we did a lot. So here's an example. Like, and your skills should translate into something else, right? So what we did is because they're a younger group and I really wanted to be able to give them something that they could walk away with. Not younger, like 3. We're talking like 12,
most of
12,
them are
13,
12, 13.
12, 13.
Most of them. Yeah.
So what I worked on was, and I explained it to them first, is like, okay, we're going to working on pull-ins or expanding your reach, whatever you want to call that, toe drag, right? So I can see people turning this off already. But so what I explained to them is that because I'm not talking about being able to do a toe drag or a pull in to get around a player, although you can use it for that. What I find that particular movement is really good for is picking up loose pucks that are far away from you, catching passes that are far away from you or really tight to you, and also for shooting. So what the principles of a pull in are, you got your hand movement, so your hand should always be going. If the puck is farther away, your hand should be close. If the puck is close to your body, your hand should be far. And then it's the weight transfer with your feet. If you don't do it properly, or if you don't do it in sync, it doesn't work very well. That's for your passing, your shooting, and your skating when you're doing that in an actual movement. So I really like taking something like that and explaining it, and then like you said, where do you use it now? So, and I think what you said, what you're thinking about is, I start off with only using their top hand and only their legs. So they're handling a puck with one hand and their legs to get the weight shift, and they're not using their bottom hand. I can understand where a 12-year-old goes, why are we doing this? That's why you have to explain why. Now it's up to them to be receptive to the reason, because it actually works. Then we add the 2 hands, and then we add movement to it. And then when you're talking about speeding through it, there's no point in doing it really fast the way we designed it, because you have to make that mind muscle connection and doing it properly with the hand foot movement, and then you can add a little bit of speed to it. But the move itself is not designed to be really quick. And then you implement, okay, so we've done pull-ins while we're skating and stick handling. How do we implement it in shooting? Well, then we implemented it into shots where, like, Austin Matthews does it a lot.
Yeah,
like he pulls it
Connor
in.
Bedard. Yeah,
Connor Bedard. That's one variation of it. Or it's like I always say, when you catch a pass way outside your body, you're off balance. So that's where you execute a shot where it's a pull-in shot. So that's like, if you've never practiced it slow or done a lot of reps, then you're just gonna shoot the puck off balance. You don't have that skill in your bucket.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
that's yeah. So show them why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So going back to the practice player versus being able to do it in the game. So what would you say to more like directly address the guy's question? It's like, how do you get a kid that is good in practice to figure it out in the game? Now that's a huge portion of what we just talked about, the explaining why to do it, but keep going on that.
Yeah, I believe some guys don't put the effort in to try. I do believe that. Like, and
like
I'm not
players, you mean?
Yeah,
yeah.
I
just
believe
don't try in the game,
or they can't connect. I mean, is it any different than any other facet of life? Is like, yeah, you should do this. You should take 10% of your income. You should put away. Yeah, I know. But does everyone do it? I know for a fact, no. Right. So
good example. Yeah.
Well, no, but that's like, you don't have to be 6 to figure this out, or not to figure it out. I mean, you could be 54 like myself and never figure it out, or you have the intentions and you never do, right? So that's one thing. I don't know if kids have the desire or they just want to play and just leave me alone, right? But to get to higher levels and to be a player, you have to actually understand hockey a little bit. So what are we trying to do when you have the puck? Even though you might be the fastest guy on the ice, if you just go straight down the boards as hard as you can to gain the zones, that's really good. It's impressive only to a certain point, because then you run out of real estate when you play against a D that understands angles and gap control, right? So that skill is absolutely useless. So maybe that kid has to learn, okay, I can go fast, but then I can change speeds, or I have to get to another area of the ice, or I use my speed, and I've never beaten these guys. So what do I need to do differently? Well, maybe I hold up, I get down low enough and by the hash mark or something like that, and I put the brakes on, come to the boards, and I look for someone driving the net or coming high. So that's like thinking about it. Or how can I use my speed to make a 2-on-1? So stuff like that. It's like trying to figure out, I'm really skilled, but how do I make make it work. Because make no mistake about this. I've said this to a lot of my guys. I'm like, you might do thousands and thousands of reps of one sort of stick handling thing. It's not that's what you're how you're going to play. You're using that. Let's just call it 2 hours of work on one thing, so that you can execute it for a tenth of a second efficiently. Does that make sense? It's not because you do a lot of stick handling doesn't mean that you go up the ice and you're a stick handling. I don't know what the word is, but magician. Yeah, you're a magician with the puck all the time. That's not what it's for. It's for when you need it. So, and it's like speed. It's great to have speed, but it's also good to have a change of pace where you can slow down and speed up. So, okay, so that I would take your understanding of like if your team has systems, like sometimes guys are young. Okay, what are you going to do? I would take your understanding of your systems and try to understand why you're doing it and how to be effective doing it. So, for example, a lot of and this is skill building, right? Like I teach a lot of kids how to enter, kicking the puck wide, and it's like people might say, "Well, that's not that hard." Yeah, watch an OHL game and watch how many guys aren't entering properly, or watch the skill it takes when you got 2-3 guys on you or on a power play, and you're going through, and they know that because it's a design play, and every team in the league does it. That they kick it back to the D comes forward, and they enter on this side, and there's a guy on the wall, and there's a guy coming in, and there's 2 guys there, but the puck is going there, and he's got to go through 3 sticks. That's a skill. It's not just an accident. It's a skill, and even though it's a design play, it's still a skill. So these are skills that you should execute really well in practice. Another thing I would say is try to understand your defensive game. So understand how to defend, because if you can understand how to defend, then you can understand when you're playing against someone how they're probably going to try to defend you if they're good. So understanding the defensive game will enhance your offensive game or your game in general. Doing your battle drills and stuff like that, take it very seriously and ask yourself, how do I get points? Maybe your question is, how can I get 3 assists today? Or how can I set up guys for goals? So if I have the puck, now I'm not just skating the puck and looking to score. Now I'm getting a little bit creative, and you start seeing patterns. That would be very helpful. Or you do the Wayne Gretzky thing and you actually look at the game on TV or whatever, and you watch what is someone doing.
Yeah, I think as maybe like to summarize. So first, it's does the kid actually want to do it?
You got to want to do it.
You got to want to do it. So let's take that as a given now. Like let's say the kid wants to do it, or says he wants to do it, or behaves like he wants to do it, but now it's just not coming together. Then I think the principle to kind of extract out of what you're saying is you got to ask questions, right? You have to be inquisitive.
It's an excellent word, bud.
About the game, right? You have to ask the question and try to figure out where you can apply these things in the game. And if you're parents, then you can be the one asking the questions, right? If the kid doesn't know to ask the questions yet, then you can be the question asker, which is great, because then they have to answer the question. You're not just dictating to them what to do like we talk about all the time. You want it to be their idea to a certain degree, so they feel like they're figuring it out. And you can play that role of question asker. Like when you have the puck going in, what do you think you should be doing in this situation if you want to score or if you want to get an assist? Because another thing that I find is an issue, especially with the young kids, is they'll find something that works and then think that they do that all the time. And a kid that I used to play with, he was a good player. He was the first guy to master the toe drag. And up until he was 14 or so, he played AA. And he was the toe drag master. Yeah, he was the toe drag master. He was a bigger kid, so he pulled it off great. So he made the jump to AAA when we were 14, 15 and started playing on my team. And he would try to go toe drag through the middle, and guys would blow him up. So then he ended up running into concussion problems, where it was literally like the Eric Lindros, Scott Stevens. Like that happened to him like 3-4 times because he would try to toe drag through the middle. But now guys know how to play that, right? So that thing that had worked for him for years and years and years and probably was never questioned because it always worked. Now it doesn't work anymore. So you've built this habit so deep that you keep trying to do it, but it doesn't work. And then he ended up running into concussion problems and didn't end up playing for very long after that, And so that's another danger of, even if you have some success, why you still need to be asking questions about this stuff, right? Because if you keep doing the same thing, at a certain point it runs out. If you're the fastest guy, at a certain point, it doesn't matter anymore. Connor McDavid's the fastest guy ever. He can't do it every time, right? He has to have other things to do. You know what I'm saying?